I just watched a close-up video of Charlie Kirk getting pewed in the neck. No fucking way he survives. So you know what time it is?
So look, I realize that this is not my usual shtick, and as such, I realize that this might have a negative impact on my channel and reputation, and I have reconciled with that. I am not going to monetize this video, and just straight up, if this is something you're not interested in, then please don't let me keep you. I will be going back to talking about video games after this. I just want to preface that I am aware of the juxtaposition of the footage and what I'm saying. This is just what I've been doing recently, and it's the footage that I have to put together quickly to make this video. I am an amateur, this is not an art video, but hey, feel free to enjoy watching me fail as an artist. The 10th of September was just a normal day like any other, really. You know, I was just learning about the mythology of Lilith and the lesser key of Solomon, went to work, and obviously the news of Charlie Kirk's death erupted out of nowhere where I work, and everyone was just quietly talking about it. And that was quite a shock. Obviously, what happened to the man, Charlie Kirk, is disgusting.
Charlie Kirk just got shot.
I want to unpack that the fact that I even have to qualify this to a public audience is an indictment of Western culture and humanity itself. We have strayed so far from a shared sense of morality that a person can be unsure of whether or not a public murder of a man in front of his wife and children was a justified act. And let's assume for a minute that anyone that thought it was good was anything other than an illiterate in the free market of ideas and a complete societal degenerate. Let's pretend for a minute that they don't condemn a man based off of what a friend said about some updressed tabloid trash they read once about how Charlie was racist. You still have to reconcile that you have propelled yourself into such a high altitude of relativity that you would never be able to condemn your own murder as unjustified. God forbid that that would ever happen to anyone. But all anyone would really need is a perceived reason within their perceived lived experience, and you would have to affirm it because it was hateful to do otherwise. So yeah, look, thankfully that rhetoric is few and far between. I think it's terrible that the number isn't zero, and I look forward to a day that people can agree on basic things. I mean, I always make fun of people that politically infantilize speech. Like, they get up on a podium and they say murder is bad, but I'm now realizing that they actually need to recite it because they might actually forget that it's a bad thing and actually do it. Anyways, that's not the main thrust of what this is about. I think the other perversion that this whole event has uncovered is this worldwide political cope within the minds of individuals. I feel like Diogenes walking around with a lamp looking for true humanity in a broken world. That a man can't just be a man, but he has to be a brand affiliation even in death. You can't even die as an individual. Trump ally has to be engraved on your tombstone. And now we have to fight over the killer's branding because strangers in some office somewhere need to reconcile their liberal politics with the engraving of Bella Ciao on the side of bullet casings, like Occam's razor suddenly doesn't exist for Discord kittens. Reason must be obliterated for the sake of the next election, as the world awaits their fate based on the citizens of another country halfway around the world, as if they have no agency to pick up a microphone and just speak for themselves. Of course, the media has a part to play in all of this, but I don't accept that a person's choice of media consumption is an excuse for all the surrounding lack of authenticity. As much as the media indoctrinates you through the words they use, you indoctrinate yourself by the company you keep and the voices you elevate. You click the thumbnail, you put on the podcast, you mouth your words. The weight of condemning someone as a racist, a fascist, or a Nazi after they were publicly murdered requires a little more effort and nuance than your favorite YouTuber's opinion, don't you think? I have looked up every example that has been given, found the clip, then watched the full video. Every single example given of this man being some redressed Hitler has been reductive hogwash. This week I have watched over 12 hours of Charlie Kirk's tour and analyzed his point of view, and I will stand on this. If you thought Charlie Kirk Kirk was racist, sexist, fascist, a Nazi, pro-genocide, that he didn't believe in empathy, that he wanted kids to starve. Not only are you wrong, you are also incredibly bad at basic comprehension, and dare I use a cliche, I think media literacy is not your strong suit, and that's being charitable. The less kind interpretation is that you are intentionally misunderstanding the point of view, and that's evil and cultish. Let me be clear here, you can disagree with someone, but the more nuanced and complicated the topic is, the more important it is that you are able to steelman your opponent in the defense of your own view. That's real empathy that you can cash in for more than a couple likes. Anyways, let's go through each of these dumb claims quickly so we can never talk about this again. Charlie Kirk looked at black people as unqualified. No, Charlie Kirk was demonstrating the point that DEI programs accelerate racism. This is observable in Harvard business articles that I have covered in previous videos. Charlie Kirk was a fascist. He literally traveled to schools and engaged in debate with his opposition. He literally died while being interrogated by a person that disagreed using a microphone and platform he provided to his opposition.
Charlie Kirk was a fucking Nazi. He was a fucking Nazi. And you know what kind of Nazi is the best Nazi? A dead one.
Charlie Kirk was a Nazi. You are an idiot, and your phone should be searched. Like, can we get away from this basement IQ pattern recognition that everything relates back to Nazi Germany? As if there is no other possibility. Like, is this some freak Leninist 4D chess move where we politically genocide for the sake of bread?
You don't have to like violence, but I'm confused as to how you thought the revolution was going to be magically bloodless.
I think if you're making a weighted claim, then you have an equally weighted burden of proof, with an equally weighted social responsibility behind the potential damage to reputation, no? Charlie Kirk wanted kids to starve. No, he wanted parents to feed their kids instead of the state. I find this to be a uniquely American perspective. In most places in the world, your parents send you to school with lunch. It's hardly this evil concept, but Americans tend to struggle with the idea of taking responsibility for their children. Believing that children should be fed by the state to cover for an assumed acceptable level of parental neglect is a strange way of protecting a problem. Like, parents feed your kids. If no, then child protection services. It's not hard. Charlie Kirk was pro-genocide. No, he wanted the war in Gaza to come to a peaceful end rather than continue. He was pro-Israel as a nation and as a Christian, but his perspective was that the US should seek to withdraw military spending and aid to foreign conflicts as a blanket principle. Charlie Kirk was sexist. No, he was pro-life, which benefits both sexes unconditionally. Often in abortion debates, there's a lot of dialogue about the mother's feelings, and because all mothers are women, and a woman wants an abortion, and you are saying, I think this is bad, and you are a man, then you hate the mother, and therefore you hate women. It's extremely rare that anyone mentions the sex of the baby being aborted and their autonomy. It's something akin to assuming that mute people matter less because you can't hear them. Charlie Kirk believed that you shouldn't have empathy. No, watch his channel. He literally demonstrates empathy and sympathy by tailoring his response to each person he talks to. If he learned his opposition was a high schooler, he would take more time to explain his points. If it was obvious that the person was extremely liberal, he would hush the crowd from booing them. If they were an atheist, he would applaud them for being consistent, even when their chain of reasoning would lead to wild outcomes in thought experiments. He helped his opponents come up with stronger definitions so they could make better arguments, or even grant them a better version of their own argument. The point he was making was that the usage of the word empathy has skyrocketed in our current zeitgeist and has become a catchphrase battle cry of slave morality enjoyers and emotional terrorists.
I think the content cop was great. You know, I feel like Ian approached it in a way that nobody else does. He approached it with empathy, and, you know, it was supposed to make people feel bad for Ethan.
It is intellectually dishonest to pretend like there is not an entire counterculture to this stereotype drawn out of real data points. Hassan Piker, iDubbbz, Denims, Frogan. Do I need to continue stating the obvious? Charlie Kirk thought that gays should be stoned. That was Stephen King accusing Charlie Kirk of saying that he was later forced to apologize for being media illiterate. Ironic. Charlie Kirk hated trans people. No. Charlie Kirk believed you should do whatever you want with your body, but not as a kid. 18 was the age he used. This is a pretty normal thing to assume that you shouldn't make permanent life-altering decisions before you've really thought things through. Charlie Kirk advocated for his own murder. No. Charlie Kirk advocated for the American Constitution and the Second Amendment, the right to bear arms. Believing that Americans should be allowed to defend themselves from violence of others is not the same thing as wanting to be shot while sitting in a tent. I have lived in a country where it was easy to get guns, and now I live in a country with strict gun control. I prefer nationwide gun control. That said, let's follow this moronic reasoning. If Charlie Kirk did not advocate for the Second Amendment, then the Second Amendment would have been repealed. Highly unlikely. If gun control was in place, then Tyler Robinson would not want to kill Charlie Kirk. Seems unlikely. If there was gun control, Tyler Robinson could not get a gun. No, shootings happen in Australia. Someone was shot and killed in my local shopping center. Someone was shot and killed outside the McDonald's where I worked in my 20s. It's way less, but there is no such thing as a complete elimination of gun violence. I still agree that less is less and less is good, but you would be intellectually dishonest not to mention the 2024 mass murder in Sydney, where a man stabbed and killed 6 people, injured 12, and was then fatally shot by a police officer. It gives pause to wonder how things could have been different if one of the 18 victims had adequate means of protection. One mother died shielding her baby from being butchered in the middle of a shopping center. In the same clip that Charlie Kirk says that gun violence is an acceptable cost for the protection of the Second Amendment, he also says that gun violence will never be eliminated, as I've said, but we should have a reductionist view. So to be clear, he advocated for the reduction of gun violence. So no, the evidence that Charlie Kirk caused his own death through his rhetoric is about the same as saying that Fast and Furious caused the death of Paul Walker because there's cars in it. Charlie Kirk wasn't a Christian because he didn't personify the love of Jesus. No, Charlie Kirk was a normal dude. If I put my empathy hat on for a second, I will suddenly realize that I too could not live up to this standard. That said, he practically demonstrated encyclopedic knowledge of the Bible and surrounding texts across multiple Christian sects, while remaining incredibly consistent in his beliefs and application of biblical principles. He was also a more effective evangelist and carrier of the Christian mission than the majority of pastors I know. He spent almost half of his time on campus talking about scripture to people who aren't already Christians, and the people listening to this scripture actually wanted to be there. And they could talk about it. This whole love of Jesus and Jesus would only make me feel comfortable, and therefore a lack of comfort is unchristian mentality, is an extension of weaponized empathy. Read it. To the persecutors, he who is without sin cast the first stone. To the defendant, and listen carefully, sin no more. That's the duality of love. There is forgiveness and there is correction. It is a thread that is carried through the entire belief from Genesis to Revelation, and if you never saw it, then you were reading your own feelings. Everyone felt the love of Jesus so much that they decided to publicly execute him.
I bet you can guess how I feel about today's news.
So yeah, look, that's about it. I think I covered the online dribble that pours out of the people that raise our children, look after us in hospital, provide our news, and generally depend on to, live. Let that sink in. These are the powerful intellects that are ushering in a kinder and accepting society without borders and discrimination. This is the current synthesis of the material dialectic, a disfigured and grotesque Hegelian amalgamation that drags its malnourished form over your home. It promises enlightenment and delivers ruin. A creature with no spine professing strength, a man with no eyes leading down a stairwell with no end. This whole situation reminds me of the Greek god Dionysus, the god of wine, ecstasy, drama, dance, celebration, and hedonism. Sometimes Dionysus takes the form of a man, sometimes a woman. But the story I find so relevant to our current situation is the story of King Pentheus. Pentheus rejected Dionysus and his wild, unpredictable nature, so Dionysus calls the women to follow, and they become his cultists. Maenads. They leave the city to go dance, sing, and revel in the wilderness, completely addicted to an insatiable need to feel, to experience their true self through ecstatic performance and worship of their base nature. Pentheus goes to find the women of Thebes, but when they meet, Pentheus's own mother leads the Maenads to tear Pentheus's limbs from his body. His mother is so intoxicated in her worship that she removed her son's head thinking it was a lion. She later returns to the city with her son's head in hand, Dionysus abandons her, and she is left with nothing but the reminder of what she has done. The permanent, forever sacrifice on the altar of the immediate, the person she loved most, lost to her own sense of self. Now, I don't believe in Greek mythology because I know Kratos killed them all in God of War 3, but every time I read one of these, I am reminded that it doesn't matter how much technology and politics change, the way people are and the wisdom in these stories is eternal.
Don't let him be the end dog. Get rid of them all. His wife deserves to go too. Y'all keep on talking about his wife and kids. They need to go too because they're carrying on that mentality and that lineage. Like, get rid of the whole family. I'm so sorry. Why did you guys stop with him?
Charlie Kirk's death and the surrounding conversation and direction has convinced me beyond doubt that we thought we were peeling back all the mysteries, uncovering the secrets, becoming more knowledgeable, ascending the throne of God himself, only to be confronted with a mirror revealing our own delusion. A moral crisis that reveals our societal rot.
Why are we cheering for someone getting shot? Like, no matter what political beliefs are, we should not be cheering that someone got shot. He has a family. We do. I value everyone's beliefs, but we should not be cheering as a class that someone got shot. He has a family. Now,
I'm not a big believer in the left-right political spectrum because I think it's a game we play in order to maintain left and right status quo. Ironically, I think that has been hyper-realized in the American system, but allow me a simplification for the means of communication. Within Western culture, Christianity is the religion of conservatism. It is, in fact, the thing we are trying to conserve. Laws are a reflection of morality, and the morality that founded these countries as we live in them is Christianity. So if I take progressivism, I have to ask, what is it exactly that we are progressing toward? Can anyone define it in a way that the majority of leftists would agree with, or is that too subjective? The original thought that Marx borrowed from was a progression to the realization of the mind of God through consciousness. Marx was more Darwinist in his approach. He presupposes a material evolution of consciousness, which is laughably utopian for an atheist. Like, a 2,000-year-old book is ridiculous, but humans are going to reach a state where they just get along and live in equality if we force them for long enough. Yeah, like, you sound like a meth head. I think you get the point. There is an overall goal of improving the quality of life, but it is completely blind in a pursuit that exists as an antagonist to the status quo. It is relative by definition, anchorless, and that's a problem right now. I don't think that people move left and right on the political spectrum, but I think the center point of the graph has been forced left through social threat and by condensing the right side of the graph to boomer, fascist, or both. It's political violence driven through the means of intentional idiocracy and malicious compliance leading to stochastic terrorism.
Radical left.
Your turn.
Did Donald Trump...
Did Trump deserve the bullet?
I never said that. No, I never said that. No.
Okay, except you did to your co-host.
No, I didn't. Oh, wait. When did Donald Trump disavow? Wait. When did Donald Trump disavow all violence in this country?
Your co-host, you lying sack of shit. If he wanted to kill Trump, the worst thing that could have happened
Donald Trump
was the
disavowed all
bullet missing.
Political violence. And
that's what you said,
and this is,
bro.
Yeah.
The intentional inability to read, comprehend, or extend charity is sending us into an era of conflict, driven by politics, media, social media, your neighbors, and your dog. Like you somehow don't know the difference between freedom of speech and freedom of association. Here's your obligatory both sides followed by a but, and this but is important. I can hold a conservative person to account to the Christian faith in the Western world in one sense or another through centering axioms of a common belief. What no one can do is hold to account any two perceived realities of two wildly different cultures and treat them as equally true. Gays for Palestine. That is French slow. The dirty secret nestled within the left that no one is allowed to admit is that in the same way that there is a risk of fascism, the left gathers in diversity, but is a winners takes all within a movement, and the most violent proponent is always the winner. Ask Trotsky. That's why they won't speak at protests. It's why they only accept affirmation in place of debate. It's why they need to constantly keep downloading and reciting the correct signaling terms just in case they accidentally expose that they have completely incompatible beliefs. Ally, empathy, diversity, equity, inclusion, lived experience, my truth, power plus prejudice, white adjacent, Nazi, fascist, privilege, the overstatement of the words capitalist society when we are all very aware that we live in a capitalist society. Just anything other than your actual beliefs. This is an ideological Achilles heel that we are watching bleed out in real time. They are actually saying what they think, and it's disgusting.
They're cheering the fact that a man was out speaking to a crowd in public, got shot in the neck, and blood was spurting out of his neck like it was a water hose. And they're cheering it on. These people are disgusting.
And if you are anything like me, you want nothing to do with it. It's just gross to watch people saying gross things and then watching them wail in ignorance.
I have nothing but this website. I have nothing anymore. I have nothing. I have nothing anymore. I have nothing anymore. I have nothing anymore. I have nothing anymore.
It's embarrassing and pathetic. And worst of all, it makes nothing better. It doesn't bring Charlie back. You lose your job. I think it also just guarantees that the zeitgeist is not going to steer left anytime soon. It's just a consecutive stack of L's for everyone. Like, ew, just get off me, you fake fucks. If I was American, I would have this desperate and immediate need to buy a gun and take a shower.
The best part of this whole goddamn thing is that he is not martyr material, so his death will mean nothing. It will activate no one. It will impact few. It's just great.
Like, I am so fucking activated. I'm like one of those almonds you soaked when you were trying to squeeze every micronutrient out of your bulking phase. As much as weirdos online try to nitpick Charlie Kirk and paint him as some radical, he literally had just the most basic middle-of-the-road Christian point of view. The same view half of your relatives probably have. That's too close. I feel like I just learned that I share the world with psychopaths that would kill me if I left the reading light on while they were watching TV. So look, I don't know where I'm going with this. Part of it is that I just needed an outlet to express the sadness and distress I feel as to whether a murder is justified, excusable, or to be celebrated. I feel a certain proximity in beliefs. Yes, I know it's hard to imagine the boobs are great guy as a Christian. I've always made a conscious effort to have a separation between my videos and my faith up until this point, and I'll realistically never talk about this again. I just find it, super cringe to talk about the intimate scenes in Mass Effect and then invite people over to my Bible study Discord so we can pray for an abundance of based video games. But I do think that people need to know this. If you hated Charlie Kirk, hey, that's fine. No problem, you do you. If you had the wisdom to not post out of respect for those that were grieving, then God bless. But if you got a little giddy when it happened, if you decided to have a little celebration, if you are glad over murder, you wanted me dead too. I would have never worn a Charlie Kirk shirt before, but I'll wear one now.
My name is Grace, I'm 13, and I've been homeschooled since kindergarten. What advice do you have for me as I move into adulthood in order to become a more informed and involved citizen?
I have hope thanks to people like you. How old are you again?
13.
13. Here's a couple things I want to encourage you to do. Learn something new every single day. Focus on what it means to be a good person and a person of strong character, especially when you get into the world of trying to be around social approval. Courage is what's missing in our country. We have a courage crisis right now. Moral courage is the most necessary yet absent characteristic in men. Aristotle said that courage is the ultimate virtue. Without it, there are no other virtues. Think about that. And so at age 13, I want you to commit yourself to a life of courage. Courage is doing the right thing when you don't know how it's going to work out. Courage is committing yourself to the correct course of action, regardless of the cost associated to it.